Hello everyone and welcome to your first grammar lesson. We are going to be talking about sentences. Now, except for one-word commands like sit, come, go, a complete sentence in English needs at least two words. A subject, like a noun or a pronoun, and a predicate, like a verb. For example, she sits. She is the pronoun or the subject, and sits is the predicate or the verb. Of course, most sentences are longer than just two words, but every sentence tells a complete thought. Groups of words that do not make complete sentences are called phrases. The subject of a sentence is the person, thing, or idea that the sentence is about. It is always a noun or a pronoun or a noun phrase. In a statement, a subject usually comes before the verb. Make sure your subject agrees with the verb. Now, what does it mean when we say a subject must agree with the verb? Subjects and verbs must agree with one another in number. So if a subject is singular, its verb must also be singular. If a subject is plural, its verb must also be plural. So this is called subject-verb agreement. Now let's look at some sentences. Amy is my sister. Amy is the subject or the noun. Is my sister is the predicate. The verb here is. Let's look at another example. She is my sister. Again, she here is the subject. Is my sister is the predicate. Another example. The girl with the long hair is my sister. Here, the subject is the girl with the long hair, and the predicate is my sister. Now, the young girl with the long hair sitting over there is my sister. This whole phrase was the subject, or a noun phrase, and is my sister is the predicate. Now, the predicate tells what the subject does, or what happens to the subject, or how the subject is. The predicate contains at least the verb and often other words that follow the verb. Let's look at some predicates now. Amy studies. Here, studies is the predicate, and it's only one verb. Let's look at another example. Amy studies English. Studies, again, is the verb, and some extra information, which is English. So, studies English is the predicate. Look at this example. Amy studies English in her room for several hours every night. So here, studies English in her room for several hours every night is the predicate. A sentence always begins with a capital letter and ends with a period. Look at this example. My parents both work outside the home. So the sentence starts with a capital letter. M in my is capitalized, and it has a period at the end. Look at this other example. People don't like to be alone. Here, the beginning of the sentence, the P of people is capitalized, and you have a period at the end. Now let's look at different types of sentences. Let's start with a statement first. A statement is a type of sentence that gives a basic fact or opinion. It can be affirmative or positive. Now, affirmative is another name for positive. So every time I say affirmative, that means positive. So a sentence can either be affirmative or negative, or a sentence can either be positive or negative. Let's look at some positive and negative examples. I live far from my parents. This is an affirmative sentence. She's an excellent teacher. This again is an affirmative sentence. Our neighbors weren't at home last night. This is a negative sentence. They are not going to travel anywhere this summer. Again, this is a negative sentence. Now, questions. Another type of sentence that needs an answer is a question. There are yes-no questions, choice questions, and WH questions. Let's start with the yes-no questions first. Yes-no questions normally begin with a to-be verb or an auxiliary verb like do, did, have, be, am, is, are, and etc. Now, in response to these questions, you need to begin with a yes or a no. So the answer to yes-no questions is only yes or no. Let's look at some examples. Are you married? Yes, I am, or no, I'm not. So this is a yes-no question. Another example. Does she drive to work? Yes, she does, or no, she doesn't. So this again is a yes-no question because the answer is either a yes or a no. Another example. Did they call you before leaving the party? Yes, they did, or no, they didn't. So that's another yes-no question. Now, let's look at the second type of questions. Choice questions give you two or more options to choose from. They usually look almost like the yes-no questions, but they include or. Now remember, do not use yes or no when answering these questions. Let's look at some examples of these questions. Are you married or single? Here you cannot say yes or no. You have to give an answer. You have to say, I am married or I am single. So this is a choice question because of the or in the middle. Let's look at another question. Does she take the bus or subway to work? The answer could be she takes the bus or she takes the subway. So again, another choice question. Another example. Did they call you before or after leaving the party? All right, now let's look at the third type of questions, which are the WH questions. To get information about specific details, we ask WH questions. These details include time, place, person, frequency, and etc. Let's look at some examples. What is your marital status? How does she get to work? When did they call you? So these are examples of WH questions. Today, we're going to be talking about parts of speech. Now, to write correct sentences in English, you need to be familiar with different types of words and their functions in sentences. Let's talk about nouns first. What are nouns? A noun names something, a person or animal, like a teacher, like Susan, like bird. A noun can also show us a place, like a mountain, or the city of New York, or bedroom. A noun can also be a thing, like a computer, a dress, or a cell phone. And a noun can be an idea, like love, like honesty, like happiness. Now, sometimes you need a noun phrase in a sentence. A noun phrase is a noun and some other words that describe it. Let's look at an example. A bag or bag is a noun. Now look at this. That bag that my mother gave me. Now, that bag that my mother gave me is a noun phrase. It plays the same role that a noun plays. Now, what are pronouns? Pronouns are I, he, she, we, and etc. Now, pronouns are words that replace nouns, and they are used in the same way. So instead of saying Ali is a good boy, you can say he is a good boy. So you can replace the pronoun with the noun and vice versa. Now let's look at verbs. What are verbs? The verb tells about the action or condition in a sentence. For example, he runs every morning. Here, runs is the verb. Why? Because it is showing an action. Look at this other example. They are eating dinner. Here, the verb is are eating. Again, because it is showing an action. Look at this other example. Our teacher forgot to mark our tests. Here, forgot is the verb because it is showing an action again. Now, a verb can also show a condition. Let's look at some examples. She seems lovely. Here, the verb is seems, and seems is showing a condition. Look at another example. I feel tired. Here, feel is the verb, showing a condition. And look at this other example. My father doesn't have a car. Doesn't have is the verb. Again, it is showing a condition. Now, verbs may sometimes change a little according to the subject. For example, we're going to be talking about the verb buy. If we say we buy, nothing happens here, nothing changes. But if we say she, then we would have to add an S to the verb. So verbs can sometimes change a little according to the subject. If the subject is she, then the verb will need an S in front of it. Verbs also may sometimes change according to their tense or their time. For example, it rained yesterday. Here the verb rained shows that the raining happened yesterday in the past. Now, it's raining now. Is raining here is the verb, and it is showing that the verb is happening right now. Now let's look at prepositions. Prepositions are short words that connect ideas. For example, in, on, at, for. These are all prepositions. Now, prepositions tell us about time, place, purpose, or even reason. Look at these examples. We eat dinner at 7 o'clock. Here, at is the preposition showing time. Look at this other example. My book is on the desk. Here, on is a preposition showing a place. And look at this other example. She bought a gift for her friend. Here, for is the preposition showing purpose. Now, what are adjectives? An adjective describes or talks about a noun. It answers the question, what kind of, or which. For example, She has a red bag. Red here is the adjective. Now, the adjective, as we said, answers the questions of what kind of. So here, it's answering what kind of bag she has. She has a red bag. Look at this other example. The small brown dog is mine. Here, small and brown are both adjectives, and they show which dog is yours. The small brown dog is mine. So basically, adjectives, again, describe nouns. Now let's talk about adverbs. An adverb describes or talks about a verb. Now remember, an adjective describes and talks about a noun. An adverb describes and talks about a verb. Now, an adverb answers the questions where, when, how, for how long, how often, and why. Let's look at these examples. It rained yesterday. Here, yesterday is the adverb, and it answers the question of when did it rain. Let's look at this other example. She eats slowly. Here, again, slowly is the adverb, and it answers the question of how does she eat? Look at this other example. I sometimes play tennis. Here, sometimes is the adverb, and it answers the question, how often do you play tennis? Now let's look at articles. There are 3 articles in English, a, an, the. Now, all of these articles signal nouns. Look at these examples. She is a friend. Would you like an apple? Meet me in the classroom. The articles, as you can see, are signaling a noun. However, not all nouns have articles before them. Look at these examples. I will see you on Friday. No article before Friday. I didn't see that movie. Again, no article here before movie. And I don't believe in magic. Same thing, no article before the noun magic. Now, using English articles correctly takes a lot of practice, so you need to be patient here. Hello everyone, and welcome back to this writing lesson. First, we're going to start off with a sentence. I'm going to tell you what a sentence is. A sentence is a group of words that express a complete idea. Now, a sentence always has a subject and a verb. A sentence starts with a capital letter and ends with a period. Now, let's take a look at these examples. Mike plays the guitar. Mike is the subject, plays is the verb. Look at this other example. They love music. I went to a party last night. Laura didn't pass the test. You can't open the box now. We are going to start with capitalization rules. In English, there are many rules for using capital letters. Here are 6 important ones. First of all, the first word in a sentence should always be capitalized. For example, my neighbor is a mechanic. So the M here is capitalized. Rule number 2, the pronoun I should always be capitalized. So anytime you write I, you should capitalize it. For example, my friends and I often study together. So you have the I capitalized. Rule number 3, names of people and their titles should be capitalized. For example, King Abdullah II, President Putin, Professor Indiana Jones. So their titles and their names are all capitalized, but not a title without a name. So if you have a title that doesn't have a name, you don't need to capitalize it. For example, he's a king. So the king here is not capitalized. There is an exception, however. A title without a name is sometimes capitalized if it refers to a specific person. For example, the President of the United States had dinner with the Emperor of Japan. Rule number 4. Nationalities, languages, religions, and ethnic groups should all be capitalized, like Swedish, English, Spanish, Jewish, Christian, Asian, should all be capitalized. All right, now rule number 5. Names of school courses with numbers should be capitalized. So Psychology 101, that's a name of a course with number, so it should be capitalized. But don't capitalize school subjects except the names of nationalities, languages, religions, and college classes with numbers. So history, math, and physics don't need to be capitalized, but Russian history or history 101 or physics 352 should be capitalized. Rule number 6, specific places you could find on a map should be capitalized, like the North Pole or South America or the Amazon River. These are specific places, again, on a map that should be capitalized.